Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing remarkably well. And go and spoil yourself. Get yourself a lovely, glorious, effervescent glass of something bubbly to drink, because you deserve it. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah, and all your lovely listeners, I'm sitting here in a Seattle coffee shop. I come here all the time. I choose the table furthest away from all the other tables, at the far end of the coffee shop, close to the window, so that I can become as obscure and nebulously indistinguishable as possible, surreptitiously disappearing and blending into the background. I don't want to be noticed. I've always wondered what it would be like to walk around invisible all the time, to have the ability to cloak myself, rather like a chameleon on a tree branch, or like a stonefish in the bottom of the ocean, just blending into the scenery so seamlessly that no one perceives me at all. I was never desperately shy or self-effacing, quite the reverse actually. It's just I always think that when people look at me, they can see the terrible thing that I've done, that has completely ruined the lives of both of my parents and my brother Dylan. And the worst thing of all is that everything that transpired that infelicious, objectionable night that I so wish I could take back, like a garment you bought from a shop that you wish to exchange. Indeed, nothing will ever be the same for my family again. But like everything in life, one has to learn to adapt to change. It's not easy by any manner of means. In truth, it's like I'm wearing this tragedy all over my face, like an indelible tattoo, or a painted canvas that says, "Hello, I'm Kathy Asher, and by the way, in case you don't know, for the record, I killed my identical twin sister." I don't know why, but I feel as naked, pellucid and translucent as a glass pane, as if everyone can see right through me and perceive exactly what I did. It's as if there is no crawl space that I can find small enough to hide in. I prefer to gingerly shrink back in the shadows, silently disappearing from sight. I don't want anyone to see me or even acknowledge or recognize me, for the shame and self-recrimination I feel is illimitable. It is also dreadful for my parents, for they only have to take one look at me, and they're ruefully reminded of the fortuitous tragedy, for in my face, every time they look at me, they see my sister. They tell me that looking at me has kept part of my sister alive, but I know they are clandestinely tormented. It's equally as appalling for me, as imagine if you see the very person you killed staring back at you in the mirror every time you look. How would that make you feel? It's like not a moment in your life can pass by without your being reproachably reminded of the tragedy. I always avoid mirrors wherever possible, and I've even covered the mirrors up in my own apartment with towels, as I want to bypass her face at every cost. If I look at my own reflection, she's staring back at me, reminding me of my reckless lunacy on that inauspicious, bodeful night that hangs around my life like a thick, oppressive, tenebrous curtain that deletes all the light. The memory of my sister Susan profoundly haunts me during the daylight hours, clinging to me like the sticky silken threads of a spider web that cannot be brushed away. Her face assiduously taunts me in my nightmares. It's like wherever I go, her dogged image is chasing after me, like a tenacious stalker, indeterminably unwavering in his persistent application to hover over me day and night. I will never be able to forgive myself for what I have done. The guilt is all-consuming, with a tsunami of sorrowful grief and remorseful regret. There was a time when I was ebullient, enthusiastic and passionate. Even when I was a schoolgirl, I was as sharp as a raven, as enthusiastic as a golden retriever puppy, inquisitive and curious about the world, always happy and carefree. For indeed, if I had had a tail, I would have been wagging it every moment of the day. In those days I was happy to sit in the front seat in the classroom, throwing up my hand enthusiastically to answer all the teacher's questions. I was sanguine and consummate in auditioning for leading parts in theatrical productions. But now I have withered away like a wild flower in the valley. My equanimous confidence has shrunk away like a woolly jersey thrown into a hot wash that is recovered, inconspicuous and small, only fit for a doll to wear. My once buoyant self-esteem is pretty much the size of a frozen pea from the bag in your freezer cabinet. I have withdrawn from my life like a tortoise retreating into its shell. Of course, there was a court case. The judge and jury found me not guilty. But only the three of us in the car really know what happened that night. And that haunting evening relentlessly plays back in my mind, over and over again, like a video recorder being peritinaciously recycled and replayed again and again and again. Sometimes I want to gather that roll of film in my mind, tear it up into thousands of pieces. How I wish I could turn back the hands of time. I wonder how many people have had an event in their life that they so wish they could change the outcome, with the benefit of hindsight in mind. Almost everyone, I should think. For we're not immune to the fragility of being human, are we? The mistakes we're inclined to make, unlike a piece of sewing, there is just no going back and undoing those stitches. There is no rehearsing for the part over again. For the days have passed. They have written their scripts on the fabric of time, with a permanence that cannot be erased or washed away, like the scat on your roof. I have so much regret in my heart that I insisted on driving us to that larny, grandiose party that we'd been invited to, that turned an ill-fated, pretentious night into a living hell, when my whole world came crashing down before me like a pack of dominoes. I was so excited about going to this social engagement. It had looked so promising. I was the one so expeditiously impractical, imprudently enthusiastic, failing to engage in a little bit of common sense, for I was driven by a capricious, perfunctory desire to have a plethora of fun, with little consideration for the harrowing risks it espoused. My sister Susan, she was so much more reliable, the steadfastly, prudently sagacious one that considered things sensibly, and never injudiciously dived into the deep end like I always did. My sister and my brother Dylan both put their feet down, insisting we do not go to this party. But the petulant spoilt brat within me keeps stamping her foot indignantly and lamenting. Normally my sister Susan and I were like two peas in a pod, agreeable on everything, except on this occasion, of course. And we were close in the way twins have that extra special relationship that others fail to comprehend. "Why do the two of you have to be such wet blankets?" I ask. "Why can't we go to the party? Come on, it'll be so much fun."
"Kathy, I don't have a good feeling about us going out in this weather. Look, it's raining cats and dogs out there. The weather reports say the roads are hazardous. Let's have a cosy night in. Watch television. Mum and Dad have retired to bed. We've got the place to ourselves. I'm sure Susan will cook us up some popcorn and make chocolate milkshakes for us. The roads out there are very slippery. It's not wise to drive in conditions that should be avoided."
"Oh, come on, you two. Stop being such spoil sports. It's not that far to the party, you know. Have you not seen that programme on television? What do they call it? Ice road truckers. These people have so much guts. They drive these massive, gargantuan trucks in the most dangerous, venturesome conditions with a fearless effrontery. We're talking about slippery, icy, arctic, cold conditions that are so perniciously lethal. One critical wrong move, they could easily lose their lives in a heartbeat. These people have a plucky fortitude, nerves of steel."
"Oh, so what you're saying, sis, is that we're both wimps, as we don't want to come to a party with you, as the weather is malignantly bad."
"Well, if the two of you aren't going to come with me, then I'm going on my own. Unlike you, I'm not afraid of driving in a bit of rain. I've got a gritty spunk. Besides, to an ice road trucker, minding the roads out there with a car like mine would be a walk in the park to them. They'd think we were pathetically silly to be intimidated by a bit of rain." I reach out and grab my purse and my car keys. I pull out an umbrella from the holder in the entrance hall. I'm dressed for a party in my elegant silver dress with my silver high heels. I look $1,000,000. I'd spent hours curling my long dark hair with curling tongs, painting my nails a silver glittery colour. I'll be damned if I'm not going to this party. I walk to the front door, throw on my raincoat that is hanging on the hook in the hallway,
I surreptitiously open the front door. It creaks open. The rain is thundering down. It's almost a liability for me to run from the front door to the garage, but I refuse to be intimidated. I brazenly rush out into the rain with my umbrella lifted above my head. I'm almost slipping on my silver stilettos as I pull open the garage door. Damn this weather, I think. I press my remote control. It opens the car door with a click. I sink back onto the leather seats gratefully. I feel fired up with umbrage and indignation. I don't want to be stuck out on a Saturday night at home with my two siblings watching something so boring on television, when we could be having so much fun at a party with the music blaring loudly, the bright colourful disco lights flashing, not to mention the alcoholic cocktails on offer and amazing piping hot snacks served on generous silver platters by waiters dressed in black and white ensemble, all in a gargantuan grandiose marquee. If my siblings aren't going to come with me, I think, stuff them. I'll go alone. I'm going to have fun tonight. I turn the key in the engine. I'm about to press down the accelerator with my foot. Then I see two figures waving me down. It's Susan and Dylan. Susan is knocking on my window. Her face is discomposed and alarmed. I roll down my window and scowl. What is it, sis? Are you going to stop me from going to the party? Because you can't. I'm going, and that's that. No, we're coming with you. I don't want you to be driving on your own to this party. Before I can say Jack Robinson, my sister is sitting next to me in the front seat of the car, and Dylan is seated in the back. I press down the accelerator firmly, whizzing down the driveway, the rain assaulting my windscreen so hard that even my windscreen wipers are battling and struggling to cope with the onslaught. The rain is unrelenting. I'm struggling to see clearly with the mist gathering on my windscreen, and all the water is just bucketing down. For a brief second, I'm almost defeated, rather intimidated by the rain. My former self-assurance melts away for a second, like butter on a bagel. I'm reluctant to drive forward, but a small voice inside me urges me on. Don't be a wuss. Drive cautiously. And that's what I do, down the empty streets that are so misty, dark, heavily flooded with water. My rubber wheels are spraying up large volumes of water. I can feel my wheels don't have great traction on the road with all this flooding. I'm one of few cars on the open road, as most people have wisely heeded to the weather warnings. My sister switches on the car radio. We hear the DJ warning listeners tuning into his station about the weather. Terrible, pugnacious conditions out there, folks, on the open road. You don't want to be out there tonight if you can possibly avoid it. There's been a great deal of flooding on some of the roads. Several accidents have been reported. The best advice we can offer is to stay at home and listen to some great music we've lined up for you this evening. You won't be disappointed, folks. See, says my sister, we told you we weren't overreacting. This untamed weather is ferocious. She's tuning in to her cell phone. I can see relief washing over her face. The party's off, she pipes. I've just received an SMS. It seems that the marquee is flooded. We have to go back home after all. I suddenly feel annoyance surging up inside me. My sister's face looks jubilantly smug. I feel so annoyed with her. So you're happy you're getting your way? I said, turning the car around, looking distinctly peeved and bitterly disappointed. Yes, I am, if you must know, sis. No one should be driving in threatening conditions like this. I'm not going to lie. I'm very relieved, pipes Dylan. It's actually quite scary driving with the rain bucketing down, and the wind is so forceful. You can't see a bloody thing through your windscreen. The rain is coming down in sheets. I don't mind admitting I'm very glad we're going back home. Sulkily, I turn around my car. But for the return journey home, a mere 8 minutes away, the roads have become infinitely more treacherous in what seems like a matter of seconds. I turn down a road that on the surface seems better drained than most, and clearer. Like a fool, I press down the accelerator slightly harder. Then, to my horror, before I have a chance to slow down significantly, my wheels ominously skate over a vast pool of water. Then my car aquaplanes above this water, flying forwards, skidding violently, slamming violently into a large tree, with such an unmerciful, forceful impact that the front of the car is almost completely obliterated. I steadfastly close my eyes as I remember that poignant, acrimonious moment when my life was forever changed. As if squeezing my eyes somehow as tightly as I possibly can will somehow obliterate and extinguish the pernicious memories. I remember that loud impact, and then nothing, until I woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later and learnt that my sister Susan had died on impact. But luckily my brother Dylan had emerged from the accident unscathed. In truth, none of us surfaced from our accident unaltered. Our family was forever changed after that serendipitous, inadvertent night. The guilt I felt about that night hung over my life like a dark blanket of forlorn enslavement. My twin sister had been my best friend, the other half of me that made me whole. Now she was forever gone. I felt culpable for her death, but I had lost the most important person in the world to me. She was an intrinsic part of myself. I shiver with cold in the Seattle coffee shop, shrouding my presence in the furthest corner, pressing my nose against the glass pane, watching the people dashing up and down the road hurriedly, dressed in raincoats with umbrellas above their heads, as the rain buckets down. "Sorry, miss, can I get you a coffee?" says the waitress, smiling at me brightly. "A cappuccino would be lovely," I say. "Thanks. Coming up," she says, looking at me through concerned blue eyes. "Look, I don't mean to be intrusive. Tell me to mind my own business if you like. But I've noticed you here before. You seem so sad and rather lost. It's like you bury your way in the back of the coffee shop. You know, I'm a good listener. We could get together after work and talk if you like." I'm staring at the waitress in disbelief, my eyes agog. She's the splitting image of my sister Susan, which means she looks exactly like me. She's studying me closely. I think she's beginning to realise how uncannily alike we are, but she doesn't say anything about it. "I'd like that very much," I say. "The cappuccino or the chat after work sometime?" she asks. "Both," I say. "I'd like both very much." "Good," she says. I hoped you'd say that. She pulls out a pad from the pocket in front of her black apron. "Give me a call sometime," she says, passing me a note with her phone number on it. "You can put it on your cell. Call me any time you wish. You so look like you could do with a friend. By the way, my name is Steph. It's short for Stephanie. My name's Kathy Cleveland. Most people shorten it and call me Kath. Isn't it funny how people always want to shorten your name? I have a friend called Sally. Everybody calls her Sal." She laughs, and even when she laughs with her shrill musical trill, she's like my late sister Susan. It all feels so hauntingly surreal. "We'll get together now. How about that cappuccino?" "Yes, please," I nod. She returns with a cappuccino, along with a large slice of apple pie and ice cream. "It's on the house," she insists. "It's absolutely delicious. You're going to love it. It's a secret recipe." "Thanks," I pipe. She wasn't wrong. I'm well aware of how thin I've got of late, as after my sister's death, food has lost its appeal to me, and the pounds have simply dropped off me, so that my skinny jeans look like loose pants on me. But I'm tucking into this apple pie hungrily. It seems to remind me of how good it feels to actually eat again. My stomach grumbles with appreciation. I'm instantly uplifted as I nod at Steph, and she waves at me enthusiastically. "See you soon," she says. I just know that I'm going to phone her, for it's like a piece of Susan has suddenly resurfaced in my life, and I have to see this girl again. I am gobsmacked as I scrutinise the address that Steph has given me over the cell. I agreed to join Steph along with her family for lunch. I'm looking forward to seeing her again. Not too sure about her family, though. But she was very eager for me to meet them for some reason. I can barely contain my exuberant enthusiasm to see Steph again. Not only does she look the splitting image of Susan, but her personality and mannerisms are a perfect match. And when you've lost your twin sister, your hankering to get that other half of you back again is unrelenting. The address that Steph has given me is for a house in Denny Blaine, otherwise known as Harrison, in King County, which is one of Seattle's richest, most affluent neighborhoods, northeast of downtown Seattle, bounded to the east by Lake Washington, tucked between Madrona and Madison Park.
It makes no sense to me. How can a young waitress, who's roughly my age or possibly older, who at the best should be living in student digs, or possibly with her parents in a rather mediocre residence, as she's a waitress, of course, be residing in a place as illustrious as this? I walked down the large pavement lined with maple trees, past fabulously grandiose properties, overlooking gorgeous picturesque waterfront views and viridescent green front yards, with the ornate properties fringed by pristine hedges and manicured lawns. I stand outside the front of a rococo ostentatious 3-story rectangular-shaped white colonial home, with florid gabled roofs, symmetrical windows, black shutters. I notice sandstone steps that lead to the elegant Baroque black front door. There's a welcome mat, and lined on either side of this mat is a single glazed black plant pot, planted up with a lollipop red rose tree, bursting with pretty blooms. I open the white modern-style gate and walk stealthily down a stunning stoned paved pathway to the front door. I can feel the butterflies flouncing up and down my stomach. I recheck the address. Can this really be where Steph lives? Surely not, but there is no doubt. This is indeed the right address. I knock on the door. I hear light feet padding towards the doorway. Steph opens it. Her feet are bare. She's wearing a pretty elegant 60s-style sleeveless sundress in yellow. But once again, looking at her, it's rather like seeing a ghost, or my double, because she looks exactly like me. "Don't just stand there gawking," she laughs. "Do please come in." I walked into the house and gasp. It's so stunningly beautiful, with its high ornamental ceilings, chandeliers and arched doorways. "Do you live here?" I ask. "Yeah, this is my family home. But I don't understand. You're a waitress. You work in a coffee shop." "That's right. My father owns the coffee shop, among many other local businesses. My aunt manages the shop, actually. I sometimes help out when she's short-staffed." "I had no idea. I was expecting you to live in a student digs or a rather mediocre residence. I feel a wee bit intimidated. I don't live anywhere as sumptuously glamorous or gilded like this. I feel positively second class, if you must know. If you saw my house, or where my parents live, you'd possibly pass out from its simplicity. I sincerely doubt that. Come in," she laughs. "I won't bite. You must meet my family. They're simply dying to meet you." I'm quickly led into a large, bright white kitchen that gleams and twinkles in the morning light, with fabulous waterfront views. But 3 pairs of eyes stare at me, and the shock on their faces is evident. It's like they're staring at a ghost, and have lost all power of being able to speak. A very elegant woman in her late 50s, early 60s, who is slender and clad in a stylish Ralph Lauren pair of blue pants, Calvin Klein white cotton shirt with gold buttons. She impulsively rushes up to me, cupping my face in her hands, her eyes brimming with tears, her hands trembling. "Molly! Molly!" she says, looking at me with awe and wonderment. "Is that you?" I naturally stiffen. My skin flushes bright red. I feel awkward and uncomfortable, like a goldfish being gawked at in an opaque bowl, with nowhere to hide. "Excuse my wife," says the man, his face colouring with embarrassment. "It's very nice to meet you, Kath. Steph has told us all about you. We are so pleased to have you joining us for lunch today. When Steph told us she had found her doppelganger, I thought she was exaggerating, but it seems she wasn't making it up. She was telling us you kept coming into the cafe for coffee, but when she got up close to you, she was shocked to be staring back at herself. She's right. The likeness between the two of you is quite uncanny." I'm surprised by this revelation. Is that the reason Steph invited me over to her house? Because I was a lookalike, I wonder. The son stands up and stares at me. I'm struck by how alike his sister he looks. He's smiling broadly at me, looking at me up and down. "My name's Simon. I'm Steph's twin brother." At this, I am so stunned. Steph is also a twin. This shocking revelation causes my eyes to well up with tears. I embarrass myself by allowing them to roll down my cheeks in an uncontrollable flood. I try to choke them back, but I fail to restrain the sobs that come bursting out of my throat.
The last thing in the world I ever wanted to do is to humiliate myself like this in front of 4 strangers that are staring at me and that I barely know. But I cannot help myself. What must these people think of me? I'm a complete basket case, I'm sure that's what they're thinking. I'm surprised by the way they react, as 4 pairs of genuinely concerned eyes are focused on me. "Sorry, did I say something?" said Simon, looking rather bemused. The next thing I find is that Steph's mother is holding me so generously in her arms, with such a warm, affectionate tenderness, as if I was her only daughter. She's rocking me backwards and forwards, kissing the top of my hair benevolently. She smells of lemon and neroli blossom. I feel immediately pacified. "There, there," she says in such a mollifying, soothing tone of voice. "Everything's going to be just all right. Everything's going to be fine. I promise you that." Before I know it, I'm ushered to the central island to sit on a fabulously comfortable bar chair, and boxes of tissues are handed to me, as well as a large glass of fizzy Coca-Cola, which I drink back gratefully. The central island, with its white marbled surfaces with grey veins feeding through the marble, remind me of a block of Stilton cheese. I run my hands over the shiny, smooth surface. The doorbell rings. I hear Steph's mother say, "Steph, get that, won't you? I think that's our lunch, it's arrived." Steph returns with 2 large brown paper bags in her hands, filled with warm takeaway cardboard containers of food that have been delivered to the door. She places the bags on the marbled surface and gives me a friendly wink. "Are you feeling better?" she asks. I nod. So this is how the rich live, I think to myself. They order everything so they don't have to cook. No wonder the kitchen looks so spotless, as if no one has ever dared boil even an egg on the range gas hob. I watch as Steph's mother tips out all the hot food into warm white casserole containers, and then beckons to me. She hands me a piping hot plate, which she holds in her hands. Then she asks me to help myself from a medley of mixed dishes. I settle for rice and sweet and sour pork. "I'm sorry," I said, breaking the silence. "I do want to apologise for my outburst earlier. I didn't mean to burst into tears in front of you like that. It was just Simon mentioning he was a twin. That really upset me, you see. It got me going." There was a long pause, as all eyes focused on me, while I continued to explain myself. I take in a large, deep breath. "You see, I was a twin once. Well, a year ago. My sister died in a car accident. I'm still struggling to come to terms with her death. Losing a twin, well, it's like losing a part of yourself. You never get over it." Steph's mother looks at me sympathetically. She almost makes me want to cry again. She takes my hand in hers, giving it a tight squeeze. "We understand that, more than you might know, dear." "You poor, poor thing," says Steph, reaching out to give my other hand a squeeze. "No wonder you've been coming to the coffee shop, looking as if the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and you hide away in the far corner. My aunt was the first one to notice you. She kept saying to me, 'That poor, poor girl over there in the far corner. She looks so desperately sad. I think she's around your age. She could so do with a friend.' But when I came up to you, and I realised you looked identical to me, it freaked me out. I tell you, I got the shock of my life. I'm not going to kid." "Me too," I said. "You look identical to my sister, which means you look identical to me. But your mannerisms and your personality are eerily like Susan's." "So tell me," says Steph's mother, looking at me kindly, "how did your sister die in this accident?" "It was all my fault. I was responsible for my sister's death," I explained, telling them the entire story from start to finish. The kitchen becomes incredibly quiet. No one lifts a fork. The food becomes cold, as everyone listens to me intently. Every word I speak holds their immediate attention, almost as if beyond what I am sharing with them is of little significance, for it would seem apart from my voice you could have heard a pin drop. This time it's Steph's father that gets up and gives me a warm, effusive hug. His eyes are filled with such tender compassion.
"Now you listen to me, young lady, and you listen to me very hard. You are not responsible for the actions of others. You understand me?"
"But if it wasn't for me, my sister would not have been in that car."
"Let me ask you something," he says to me. Supposing I decide to take a ride on the roundabout at a fairground. I urge you to come along with me. I tell you, come on, get on to the roundabout with me. But you decline. Finally, you decide to get on the ride. You end up being killed on that ride as you accidentally are flung off the roundabout. Am I responsible for your death? Tell me that. No, you weren't to know what would happen. You didn't force me to take that ride with you, did you? I chose to get onto the roundabout myself. Precisely. And your sister and your brother that night knew two things. One, they knew you wanted to go to that party. And two, they knew that they were taking a risk when they got into that car with you. I nodded. I suppose so. They knew the weather was treacherous, so when they climbed into the car with you, they were putting themselves at risk. What happened to them was a consequence of bad weather, tumultuous conditions, and a risk that they were willing to take. Do you understand that? I suppose so, I say. My dad's absolutely right. You are not responsible. None of this is your fault, says Simon. But we both know what it's like to lose a twin sister. We're in exactly the same boat as you, are we not, Steph? We live with the loss every day. It's like we sense a part of us is missing. Steph nods. Her face looks sad and reflective. You lost a sister, I gasped. I had no idea. I'm sorry, when did this happen? This happened when we were very young. Me and Simon have no memory of the event. But all these years later we feel her loss, as she was my identical twin sister. You see, me, Simon, and my sister Molly, we were triplets, but Molly and I were identical. Even though we grew up without ever knowing Molly, we always felt her loss, which is why when I saw you in the coffee shop, part of me wondered if you could be Molly. But I see now that that is certainly not the case. But even so, I feel as if I've got my twin sister back, as odd as it sounds. It's rather surreal. That is why, when my wife saw you looking identical to Steph, she felt as if Molly had returned from the dead, so to speak. What happened to Molly? Now it's the family's turn to be silent. I notice eyes darting across the table in secret exchanges, and that's when I realise they're negotiating whether to tell me the secret or not. I suddenly see Steph's mother bringing out wine glasses to the table. She asks me if I drink wine. I nod. She pours us large glasses of Sauvignon Blanc. It'll be a pleasure for me to tell you our story, Kath. Not only because you look identical to my daughter Steph, which means you also look identical to Molly, but you've allowed yourself to get vulnerable with us today, and I really appreciate that a lot. You've courageously opened your heart to us, even blaming yourself for your sister's death, which I might add is nonsensical, as you're certainly not responsible for her death. So please stop persecuting yourself for it. I'll tell you one thing about you, Kath. You possibly don't know this, but you've got guts, girl. You should be proud of your courage. Despite everything, including your grief, you're still fighting strong. And the fact that you're here today, opening your heart up to us, we feel truly honoured about that. I also do not believe in coincidences. I think that Molly has sent you to us today, to bring us back the sister and daughter we lost. I'm in no doubt that for both Steph and Simon, your presence here today is filling that empty hole in their lives, which you have already done for us with your presence when you walked through that door. I saw your face for the first time, and when I did, a dead part of me came alive again. You see that pretty beauty spot on your left-hand cheek? You know what is the most bizarre thing of all? Is that one distinguishing feature that helped me to tell my kids apart is that Steph did not have a mole, but Molly had it, and so do you, in exactly the same spot. How old are you, dear? She asks me. I'm 22. Well, Kathy and Simon are both 23. If I didn't know any better, I would say you were a reincarnation of my lost daughter. Even your energy reminds me of the child I've lost. I must admit it is extraordinary. I do feel right at home with all of you, I admit. How did Molly die, I ask? Well, we assume she's dead, dear, but we never recovered her body. Go on, Mum. Tell Kath the story. It is my story to tell, admits Steph's mother. But I will say this,
I will understand, dear, if you find the story implausible or seemingly fictitious. If the truth be told, what transpired was so bizarre to me that I found it even hard to comprehend what had actually happened. I hasten to say that beyond these four walls, you will be the only person we have ever told. So I hope we can guarantee on your discretion. Of course. Very well, let me start at the beginning, as that's the best place to start. Me and my husband were staying in an RV on a vacation. In those early years, we didn't have a lot of money, as we were just starting up. We were very young, very naive, and we weren't always wealthy, you know. My husband here is one of those natural high flyers who does make things happen, which is how we made our money. Needless to say, we were staying in a vacant camping ground near the Cascades National Park, I think it was. We wanted our privacy, to be in a spot on our own. We found an idyllic place by the silvery lake of water surrounded by weeping willows, and in the furthest distance you could see the rise and fall of the mountains. A farmer had bought the old campground in order to extend his land further, so he gave us permission to stay there. One field was full of black and white dappled cows, and there was a wooded area beyond the pond, consisting mainly of Douglas firs and ponderosa pine trees, I think. The great thing about this spot was it was an area that had once been a campground, so it invariably meant that there were a lot of open trails, and even old picnic sites and chairs and benches, and open barbecues available for us to use, so we thought we were very privileged to have this place all to ourselves. But certainly in hindsight, it may have been our biggest undoing. I remember it was late evening. We had a tent that was surrounding the edge of our RV, where I had my 3 babies lying fast asleep together in the cot, close to the opening of the tent, so that I could check on them regularly, and that's what I invariably did. We were barbecuing the meat that evening, and I quickly went back to the tent to get some salad dressing, and that was when I saw her. I stood there staring at her in horror. I didn't have a clue what she was. I mean, I'd never seen a thing like this before. The creature was female. She was about 7 to 8 foot tall, was covered in long flowing dark brown hair, which had a lovely shine to it, and almost looked as if it had been brushed. It was silky and healthy looking, rather like human hair. I noticed her arms were overlong, her legs so powerful and sturdy. She was very intimidating and daunting in size, and she was so powerfully built, with a robust body. I think the thing that astonished me the most was she had such a human face, and her deep-set dark eyes were desperately sad. I just stood there staring at her. I didn't scream or feel any fear. I guess I was so nonplussed at what I was perceiving that I almost felt I was caught up in a dream from which I would surely awaken. The creature was holding Molly in her arms, rocking her backwards and forwards, and looking at her lovingly. She looked up at me with bright eyes, and I heard her say to me, "You have 3, and I have none. I will take care of her, I promise you." It was then I grabbed hold of her hairy arm. I said, "No, you don't." I tried to grab my baby from her, but she pushed me very gently away, and she glided off with my baby. I stood there for a second, hardly daring to believe what had happened. I quickly ran after the creature, screaming, "Please don't! Please give her back to me! I want my baby back!" I was absolutely distraught. The creature, I now realized, was a Bigfoot, but she had long gone. When I told my husband what had happened, he said the police would never take us seriously if we told them a Bigfoot had taken our baby. So we had to pretend that we returned to the tent and our baby had gone missing. So, of course, the police searched the wood groves around here. They found absolutely nothing. I knew I would never see my Molly again. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said. "That's such a tragic story." It is, and I know it's going to sound completely incongruous and rather irrational, but I certainly don't hate or despise the Bigfoot for stealing Molly, as you might expect I would. I often think of how desperately sad she was. Her shoulders were hunched over. I got the distinct impression she wanted more than anything in the world to have a baby of her own, and God had not blessed her in that regard. I think she was barren, and so in total desperation she stole my baby. So I have actually forgiven her, but I certainly can't forget what transpired, as losing a baby is monumental. It's a loss in every way, and you never come to terms with it. But your being here today is like bringing Molly back for me, because you look exactly like she did. It's quite extraordinary, really. To cut a long story short, In the years that followed, I became incredibly close to the Cumberland family. I think I filled a hole in their lives, as they did in mine. Steph became to me like my twin sister Susan that I missed so desperately much. She possessed all the quintessential qualities and quirky characteristics of my sister. If that wasn't weird enough, my brother married Susan, so she also became a sister-in-law to me. And I married Simon. So we became one big happy family. Simon and I have had 2 identical twin girls, and Steph gave birth to identical boy triplets. It's so weird that a double ganger I encountered in a coffee shop certainly changed my life forever. But I have let go of the guilt. I can't punish myself for the rest of my life for what happened that fateful day to Susan. And if there is one lesson I've learnt in life, we have to learn to forgive ourselves. So there you are. That's my story.
Wow, what an incredible story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.